Rob Tebbutt for ID Boxing, delighted to be joined. It's been a while, but I'm joined by the only man who's posher than me in boxing, Joe Markowski. How are you, Joe? Nice to see you.
I'm good, and it's good to see you back at work rather than sort of trolling me about my breakfast on the internet, which seems to be what you do these days, but I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, very well. I just mentioned you briefly off camera, very disappointed that you don't have any breakfast here to welcome me in fight week, but what's going on with that, Joe?
It was a late lunch, wasn't it, rather than a breakfast press conference, so Eddie Hearn organises the press conferences. I'm not in charge of the food budget. That's something you can take up with him and Frank.
I'm sure I will do at some point. But nice to see you, Joe. It's been a little while. I was trying to think the last time I actually interviewed you. I think it may have been around the launch of DAZN in the UK. So it's been a little while. Obviously, plenty of water under the bridge since then, and namely Mr. Usyk-Joshua now fights live and exclusive on DAZN in the UK. First and foremost, you must be delighted to have AJ on DAZN.
Yeah, listen, we've been working with AJ internationally for as long as we've been working with Matchroom, which is about 5 years. Just about 5 years ago, 2018 we started. So a long time, always with an eye on working with AJ in the UK. When the opportunity arose, we were very excited to take it. We think it's a really interesting new stage, a new dawn of AJ's career, and one that we're really happy to be a part of and support. I think there's lots of fights coming up for AJ. I think he's dangerously close to being back at the very top of the world heavyweight rankings, but to get there he's got to come through a tough test on Saturday night, and I think he's got to look spectacular in doing that to get the public clamouring for the fights that perhaps we were talking about 6 or 12 months ago. So there's a lot at stake on Saturday night. Everything in AJ's future at that level hinges on a performance on Saturday night, and I think that's his mindset going in. That's definitely how we're positioning the fight, and what we expect as a broadcast partner. We expect a spectacular performance, and we're very excited to be broadcasting that globally and exclusively, including here in the UK.
Here in the UK, and not just, of course, on DAZN, the app now. We've seen, I think in the last 6 weeks or so, we've seen several different announcements. First of all, the Usyk-Joshua fight's not going to be pay-per-view. Then, of course, Sky Channel 429. And then recently, as yesterday, I believe it was, we had the news about DAZN now being available in pubs and restaurants, etc. So quite a few changing things recently with DAZN.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are all about accessibility. We want sports fans to be able to watch their sport in any way they want to. We're not going to stand in the way of content being broadcast where fans want it. DAZN will be available in more living rooms this Saturday night than ever before. Any screen you have in your life, any screen that you visit, any screen that you have in your pocket, any screen that you have on your TV in your living room, we're going to be on that screen, on the app, in the App Store, on www.dazn.com, in pubs, on Sky Channel 429, on the Virgin platform. There are no screens in the UK where DAZN is not going to be accessible. So that's a big part of our strategy. We want to make sure that we are fully accessible on a pricing perspective. Obviously, we've chosen to bundle this within a DAZN subscription. That starts at £9.99 a month, so it's tremendous value. We're not gouging on a pay-per-view price point. We're trying to drive value and accessibility, and we're doing both those things on Saturday night.
It's obviously quite a difference from the original launch of DAZN, which was, of course, the Netflix of sports. Is that something that you've just kind of had to adjust with the climate, or is it something that you'd always look to do, particularly the Sky Channel?
Yeah, listen, I think we've learned, and we're not ashamed to say that we're in a really fast-moving industry, and we're pioneers within that industry. 5 years ago when we launched, 7 years ago, no one was broadcasting premium sports rights on digital-only platforms. We were the first movers in that space. In the UK, we've come in, we've adjusted our strategy. We've done so honestly. We're happy to do that. We learn and we adjust as we go. We listen to fan feedback proactively. You see us do that on social media. So when fans tell us we'd like to have this available on the Sky platform, we'd like to have this available on the Virgin platform, we'd like to have this available in our pubs and clubs and the bars we go to watch boxing, we listen and we make that happen. And it's not always as easy as clicking our fingers and getting it done. There are commercial and technical considerations, operational considerations, regulatory considerations sometimes, but we go out of our way to make sure we're listening to the fans and delivering them what they want. We're getting very, very close to, say, in the UK, to having complete distribution everywhere you could possibly want to have it. It'd be very, very, very hard not to find the AJ fight this weekend. We're everywhere we could possibly be, and that's something that we're very much focused on delivering in all of our markets around the world.
It's one of the things that I've spoken to Eddie about in the past is cross-promoting, particularly when it was DAZN, the app. You know, how do you kind of replicate or, I guess, account for being able to broadcast during the Champions League in this country or the Premier League in this country? How are you getting the word out there about Sky Channel 429 with regards to DAZN?
Well, through a number of different ways. We have a great PR team who speak to people like yourself and journalists and get us in all the mainstream media. The coverage of this fight this weekend has been fantastic. All over BBC Sport, all over the broadsheets, all over the tabloids. Good Morning Britain this morning. Anywhere you could possibly be consuming news content, we're there. We've got fantastic ambassadors. AJ himself has a huge platform. Eddie, as much as I like to try and keep his ego in check, has a fantastic platform and is a fantastic promoter as well. We also spend smart marketing dollars where we need to. Doing deals with the Sky platform and the Virgin platform allows us to grow the organic buzz around the fight. When Virgin customers turn on their TVs this Saturday, that will be alight with AJ Franklin advertising and calls to action to buy the fight. When Apple phone users, iPhone users load up their app stores on Saturday night, same with Google Android phone users, the homepage of those app stores will be alight with Joshua Franklin buy now, watch now advertising. So we do it differently. We're a new age broadcaster. We're a digital broadcaster. We don't have the benefit of a big linear legacy business. We don't have the restrictions that those businesses sometimes carry. We're a different broadcaster. We're doing things differently, and we're doing it with confidence and with increasing success. Our business is in the best possible shape it can be right now. We've increased our profitability and our growth, and the pace of our growth in the last 2 or 3 years rapidly, and we're very proud of where we've got to. We're only 7 years old as a broadcaster. We're only less than 2 years old as a UK broadcaster. We're moving at speed, and we're listening to fans always, because we want to be a friend of the fan and delivering content where they want to consume it.
Just going back to the DAZN monthly subscription, I pay $19.99 at the month because I'm too lazy to go ahead and do the pay up front for a year. I know that there was some consternation about when that was made public, and certainly with the Sky channel of 429, people who weren't subscribed or people who would subscribe for $99.99. I know it's since been rectified, but it's been difficult to kind of keep up with it, to be honest with you, Joe. What can you tell me about how the pricing is now, and for people who maybe are watching this without a DAZN subscription, the easiest and different ways for them to subscribe?
Well, in quite simple terms, our pricing strategy serves all different types of boxing fans. People like yourself, I'm surprised you're not on one of the...
I've never unsubscribed.
You've never unsubscribed. If you are a hardcore boxing fan, someone who knows they want to be consuming boxing regularly, we have made 2 extremely good value options available to you. You have an installment plan that allows you to sign up for a year's commitment, being billed monthly, that keeps you as a subscriber for a year, but charges you monthly. We also have an annual option if you're willing to commit and pay for a year up front. Those are, without question, the best value subscription offers in all of boxing. They are tremendous value. Our schedule is unrivaled in the UK. We have a global roster of fights being served regularly, particularly from the US. Big time boxing. If you're a boxing hardcore fan, that is the subscription type for you. One of those 2 options, the annual pass or the installment plan. If you are, and there are lots of, you'd call them casuals, I'd call them general sports fans, who want to come in for an AJ fight, who want to come in for a Canelo fight in the US, for example, clearly we're a business, we don't apologise for this, we're not going to have as regular and as sticky a relationship with that customer as we will with a hardcore fan like yourself. So our pricing strategy accounts for different types of customers. The flex offer, the monthly flex offer, serves the tourist fan, the fan who's going to come in maybe for one night, maybe for a month, maybe for 2 months, and then step away when there's content that doesn't serve their interests or their needs. We've adjusted our pricing strategy to serve those different types of boxing fan. What we are committed to do, and we've had pay-per-view functionality now for best part of a year. I committed at the time when we launched pay-per-view that we wouldn't overuse it. We wouldn't gouge the customer regularly, like some of our friends in the broadcast industry, particularly in the US, have done traditionally by overusing pay-per-view pricing. We're not going to do that. We're going to be focused on delivering the best possible value schedule we can deliver. That starts with quality fights. We have the best quality fights and the best quality schedule in boxing and in crossover boxing, which you may roll your eyes about, but we do, and we're committed to that. We've been doing that, I think, for the last 3 or 4 years. We're also on pricing committed to not gouging, as I say. So AJ, I think this is the first fight in 9 years that isn't a pay-per-view for Anthony Joshua. If you have one of those installment options or the annual option, you're paying less than a tenner for an AJ fight. That's pretty good value relative to where it's been. And so our commitment to quality and schedule and regularity of schedule and value of pricing, I think we're being pretty consistent with, and hopefully that message is now landing with hardcore boxing fans. The data I look at, the trends I look at, which obviously is my job, suggest they get it and suggest it's working. So we're happy with our pricing strategy.
Just on that, the kind of the fans, I mean, casual fans or kind of general sports fans who may be looking to buy an Anthony Joshua fight only, it's still $19.99, so it's not a world away from what they would pay for a conventional pay-per-view price.
Yeah, but we give them the option to buy in a different way. If they want to regularly consume boxing content and commit themselves to the DAZN and be good customers to the DAZN, we'll reward them, they'll reward their loyalty with best in market pricing and best in class product, which is regular high quality boxing events. Look at the next 8-12 weeks on the DAZN, on both sides of the pond, from Mexico, from the O2, from Dublin, from Wembley Arena if you're a KSI fan. There's so much high quality content coming your way on the DAZN. As I say, there's different pricing for different segments of the UK sports fan base. Our commitment will remain to value and quality of scheduling.
Obviously, I understand kind of the loyalty side of things, but also we are in a crisis of cost of living crisis. Sorry, we've had Eddie kind of just join us there. Not a cost of living crisis, Freddie. We saw the Matchroom Boxing accounts recently. It was putting petrol in the private jet over there. But do you think it's, you mentioned that kind of the next 8 to 12 weeks, but you are asking people to sign up for 8 to 12 months with obviously only 12 weeks worth of scheduling. We've seen fights recently fall out. We have no idea as to September. Let's say Canelo Alvarez beats John Ryder or John Ryder beats Canelo Alvarez. There's no guarantees that we know whether or not that's going to be a pay-per-view in September for that big weekend.
Which fight, sorry?
So if let's say Canelo beats John Ryder and fights Dimitri Bivol in September, we have no guarantees down the line that that's not going to be a pay-per-view. So it's not looking at the next 8 to 12 weeks.
Canelo fights in the UK are not going to be pay-per-views. We learned our lesson on Canelo Triple G. That's not going to be. We're not going to put those as pay-per-views. The US is a complete.
More just a kind of an example as the fact that the schedule hasn't been announced that far ahead.
Of course, but I think what I would encourage you to do is look at. If you're a hardcore boxing fan, you know what DAZN have been delivering. Boxing fans like to complain. They like to have a whinge on social media, right? We're used to that. We're big boys and girls. We can take that. If we just can take the emotion out of it sometimes and look at what DAZN have delivered in the last 4 or 5 years, we have delivered regularly massive fights and regularly, consistently deliver the biggest fights. We've done that in the UK the last year, 18 months. We've done it in the US for 4 or 5 years. If you are a hardcore boxing fan, you know that. You know you get high quality, regular fights on DAZN. We'll ask you to sign up for the annual pass to maintain the value, or the instalment plan to also maintain the value. If you don't believe us and you don't want to take that punt, okay, we've given you another option. Yes, it's higher priced, but it gives you the benefit of flexibility, and you can take a month-to-month view on whether or not you think that product is serving you with value. My personal view is for the vast majority of people watching your content who are hardcore boxing fans, they should be buying the annual pass or they should be buying the instalment plan. In doing that, they guarantee themselves the best quality boxing schedule and the best quality value in the market. I think sometimes people forget Sky is not, when a pay-per-view on Sky is not on top of a free-to-air subscription. There is a high-cost Sky subscription, a high-cost BT subscription. Yes, they have a much broader range of content, but it's not free-to-air television. I think sometimes people sort of assume that it's a commodity that everyone just has in their life. That's not the case. We're not asking people to make 40 or 50 or 60 pound platform commitments every single month. We're asking people to make a decision as to what kind of flexibility they want around their subscription product. If they want to be flexible and they don't think they can guarantee themselves value 6 months ahead of time, despite what we've delivered in the last 4 or 5 years, by all means, pay the higher cost monthly flex subscription and buy yourself that flexibility. I would encourage your audience, hardcore boxing fans, to look at the value that we've delivered historically, particularly in the last 6 to 8 months. Look forward as to the fighters we've got signed, the schedule we've announced, the commitment we've made with promoters like Eddie, like with Canelo, our relationship, like with Golden Boy, like with others, Wasserman and the X Series, and think about whether or not there's value in that subscription for you. And I personally think there is. I know what we're going to deliver this year. I know what we'll deliver in the next 6 to 8 weeks. I think already you're starting to see the trends of the value that we can deliver in the UK.
Just on Anthony Joshua this weekend, what type of viewership are you expecting on DAZN?
I won't give you viewership expectations. I think this is a big fight for AJ. He has a huge following in the UK. That's why we're in business with him. I think this is a fight that tees up huge opportunities for AJ if he wins, and if he wins in spectacular fashion. The reason to watch this weekend is to see if AJ can unlock the next phase of his career. He needs to look good against Franklin. He needs to look spectacular. We'd like to see him knock him out and open up the fights with Dillian Whyte, with Deontay Wilder, and possibly even Tyson Fury. He can't think about any of that unless he beats Jermaine Franklin spectacularly on Saturday night. that's why you should watch on DAZN on Saturday night.
Any concerns or reservations? Obviously, it's coming off the back of those 2 losses to Usyk, and particularly the second Usyk loss with all of the kind of post-fight antics, so to speak. Any concerns about his marketability?
I've got no. I mean, the post-fight antics was a disappointed man who's been building towards a goal for his whole adult life, and he had that checked against Usyk in the second fight. I respect the emotion. I think it was passion that we don't often see from AJ. We don't often see it from professional athletes. That made me like AJ more, actually, that stuff. It shows you his passion. It shows you how much he cares about this. We've clearly done a deal based on all known factors. We know what's happened in his career. We know the fights he's won, the fights he lost. We know how big a star he is. We're really confident going to Saturday night that our business has made a great deal, and we're very excited to introduce DAZN to a much broader range of UK sports fans than we had previously, and we'll do that Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening.
Well, I think on all things DAZN, we kind of touched on it at the start here about obviously the original launch and the Netflix of sports, and then it was, death of pay-per-view. I appreciate it's a while ago. They're now doing pay-per-view. What's DAZN's USP as it stands now, in your opinion?
DAZN is building a destination platform for sports fans globally. We are the leading sports broadcasters globally in the digital space. We are building more than just a live broadcast business. We're building a business that accommodates all aspects of sports fandom. Live content, on-demand content, documentaries, opinion, news, betting, merchandise, e-commerce. We want to serve sports fans in every aspect of their fandom. We've launched a DAZN shop recently in boxing. We want to make sure that we are touching on every single aspect of sports fandom. We've started as a pure play sports broadcaster, broadcasting live sports content. 3 or 4 years ago, we started producing high quality original content. We're evolving our business. We're a business that is growing at pace globally. Our USP is that we are the leading global sports broadcaster, building the leading sports destination platform. And you're going to see us evolve what that means in the coming years. That will mean more content acquisitions in key markets. It will mean the launch of new markets, building on our global presence, more investment in specific markets of the world. It will see us invest more in boxing content, build a more healthy boxing business, which we are really doing now, and continuing to grow. We're incredibly encouraged by our success coming out of COVID. That was a tsunami that could have taken out our business. It didn't. It made our business stronger, and we're very excited where we find ourselves as the early parts of 2023. We're growing at pace.
Final ones from me. Conor Benn. What's the latest with Conor Benn? Obviously, we've seen rumours this week about Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank Jr. We saw back in October, a very unsavoury fight week. There's no other way to call it. From your perspective at DAZN, I mean, we've seen the rumours about Chris Eubank Jr., potentially Kell Brook. Do you have any reservations as somebody very senior at DAZN in having somebody in Conor Benn who still is under investigation by UKAD Boxing on one of your shows?
Clearly, DAZN were disappointed with what happened in October. It wasn't something we were particularly involved in. We were receiving information not at dissimilar times to you and the rest of the public. It's a matter we'll leave to the promoters, frankly. There's a lot of legal complication in it. There's a lot of considerations for the promoters and the fighters. So it's a question really for Eddie and Calla, and I'm not going to try and dodge it. I think DAZN's position is we want to broadcast the biggest fights the public want to see that are licensed. And if they're licensed and the public want to see them, we won't stand in their way. I think there are considerations for us to take, but I think we need to await some information and some news really from our promotional partners and from the various bodies involved in that conversation before anything is done and anything is announced. Nothing's done, nothing's announced yet. So as and when we have something to say on that, I'll let you know.
I appreciate it's not necessarily, you're not a promoter, and I do have questions for Eddie, but from an optical point of view, from the optics for DAZN, I mean, a fight that, it looks as though can't happen here due to Conor Benn's outstanding case with UKAD. A fight that's kind of taken into a different territory, a fight that can't happen over here. Obviously, we've launched in the UK in the last couple of years. Conor Benn is a big name in the UK. How does that sit with you? Is that something that you provided all, I guess, the legal ramifications are kind of satisfied? There's no moral or ethical standpoint from DAZN in that instance?
I think DAZN will consider the information that comes to light as and when it does. I think there's a lot of legal complication, and there's nothing particularly black and white in the situation right now. We'll await the outcome of various ongoing conversations and rulings as and when we are presented formally with a proposal to carry that fight. There'll be considerations for us to take regarding licensing, regarding the staging of the event, the health and safety of the event. That's true of every fight we consider.
Understand that this is obviously a completely different than a normal fight that would be licensed.
I think as and when there is a formal proposal, we will look at all available information at the time and make a decision on it. I haven't had a formal proposal on that fight. As and when we do, we will consider the available information at the time. That's my position on it.
Final one from me. I've had a few tweets today asking me specifically to ask you about Davis Garcia in the UK on DAZN. What's the latest with that?
Ongoing conversations with the PBC who are selling those rights. We'd like it in the UK. I think there's an audience for it in the UK. I think it's a particularly big North American fight. We're very, very proud to have played our part in making it. Hopefully it's a sign of things to come in terms of promoters and broadcasters and various entities around fighters getting out of their own way and making a fight happen at a time when the public want it. That hasn't been the case for the last 3 or 4 years. It's been too often the case that fights fall apart because of broadcast and promoter politics and frankly some industry bullshit that fans shouldn't have to worry about. We've made a public statement that we want to get around that stuff. We've backed that up with action and deal making in this instance. I want it to be precedential. I want it to be a sign of things to come. And I'm excited that we are going to be a part of that in North America on April 22nd. I hope we can be a part of it too here in the UK. Let's wait and see. Potential for more international rights in the future. PBC, you've just mentioned now. Obviously, I know you do Golden Boy already, but Top Rank or all the other promoters? All of that. We're talking to the PBC, obviously, around the Garcia Tank stuff. Yes, our doors are open for any promoter, domestic or international, to serve us with great quality boxing content. We want to continue serving, make our best-in-class schedule even better, Rob. And I think we're looking at deal making across the board that will allow us to do that. We've got some announcements coming up that are consistent with that statement.
Look forward to it. Joe, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for speaking to ID Boxing. Look forward to catching up with you soon.
See you soon.